It's Monday, November 16th, 2020 at 7 p.m. And we're in a regular business session tonight. Our first item of business is to establish a quorum. And we have 6 of our 7 council members with us tonight. We have 1 absentee. The next item of business is disposition of the minutes. And this is for the regular session held on October 19th. And the regular session held on November 2nd. And if we could have a motion for approval of the minutes of these 2 sessions, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Chris Fall and seconded by, that sounded like, was it Sam? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion has been approved and the minutes have been approved. The next item is communications. And I have one item, and that is that to report that the annexation material from the Athens County Commissioners for the Lurig Road annexation has been received by council and has been held the required 60 days for presentation to the council. And that is on tonight's agenda for the first reading. And in fact, we have several representatives with us tonight for that Lurig Road annexation. Do any other council members have communications to report? Okay. If not, we'll move on to communications and reports from other elected officials. Law Director Eliason.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Auditor Hecht. Do you have anything to report? And
sorry, I'm unmuted. No report.
Okay, thank you. And then Mayor Patterson.
Thank you, President Isley. A few things that I'd like to bring up with council tonight and to the viewing audience. Those who watched the governor's press conference last week, you'll remember that he did note that there was a couple changes going on, one of which is, well, the gatherings of greater than 10, no gatherings greater than 10 is still in place. He has made some changes to that, and that is no social or activities in open congregate areas and no dancing. If you're in establishments, dining establishments, that people must be seated at all times, if you're being served food or beverages, guests must be in their seats, no self-service buffets. A lot of this still exists. The most important thing with this is, again, the no groups greater than 10 in outdoor congregate spaces. I won't go into any more detail with that. The other order that he mentioned during his press conference, again, certainly worth mentioning to everyone, is that to the new mask order. And that is, and I'm going to read this verbatim because I think it's important, that most businesses are doing a good job ensuring that COVID-19 safety guidelines are being followed. However, it is clear that there are some businesses where mask wearing is lacking. We have a responsibility to our employees and customers to ensure that Ohio businesses are safe, are as safe as possible. Governor DeWine will ask the Health Department to reissue the mask order that has been in place since July 23rd to include the following new provisions. 1, each business is required to post a face covering requirement sign at each public entrance. We already have those signs, and we will reissue those signs. I'm working with the county health or the Convention and Visitors Bureau to make a new sign with some of this language in it. So you'll be seeing that shortly. Each business will be responsible for ensuring that its employees and customers are wearing masks. A new retail compliance unit led by the Bureau of Workmen's Comp will be inspecting to ensure retail compliance. A first violation of this order will bring about a written warning A second violation will bring about a closure of that store for up to 24 hours. So again, it's important to make sure that people understand that there will now be a unit that is going around and inspecting businesses to make sure that they are being compliant with this recent change to the state mandate for face coverings. Another thing President Nisley had to share is that Athens Public Transit, we just received notice that effective November 21st, that they will be reducing their service. And that service will be a reduction in line 7 to 1 bus. That is the bus route that goes between Albany and Nelsonville through Athens. There's typically 2 buses en route, so it's going to be 1 bus alternating hourly between Albany and Nelsonville. They will also reduce their hours on Saturday. This is a cost-saving measures for Athens Public Transit. The Athens Commission on Disabilities has asked me to remind everyone that they have a call for artists for the next round of 6 Athena Awards. We've given away the last one. It went out to Patty Mitchell last week, and so they are looking for artists. If anybody is interested, you can reach out to the I believe it's to the social media at www.facebook.com/Athens Commission on Disabilities, and you can get more information via that. You can probably go to the city's website. I'm sure that it's posted there as well. And the last thing to share, I did send a text earlier. Actually, I have 2 things. Let me go to the third to the last. This is really interesting. I just want to show everyone who is viewing tonight. Rainey Olson brought this by my office, 3 of these. Let me hold it up a little closer so people can have a look at it. This was a commissioned work of a design by Judy Morgan at the, I believe, a local artist, if not an art teacher in Athens, to design a distinguished key to the city. So this is a pewter key to the city. I have 3. They're kind of in different stages of being produced. The first was a first casting, and then the second one's a little more cleaned up, and then this is the polished pewter key. And make note of the A at the top, where there's a tree around that A, which is really telling. This, as I've been told, was about 35 to 40 years ago, so the mid-1980s that this came into being. I am going to have these put into a shadow box and put on display in the city building for people who want to see it. And who knows, maybe we can commission someone to bring this back to life again. But it's a pretty special item, and a big thank you to Ms. Olson for bringing that to my attention. The last couple things to share with City Council tonight, and then I will pass it on, is that last Thursday, I was honored by being elected by the Mayor's Partnership for Progress to be the next president for the Mayor's Partnership for Progress. The former president, Gary Guzman, who had served for 5 years, decided that he wanted to turn the reins over, and I was nominated along with the new vice president. I had served as vice president for several years. The new vice president is, I'm totally blanking on her name, which is terrible. The mayor of New Concord. And so she is acting mayor. Her name will come to me in a moment. So I'm glad she's not watching tonight. I'd feel really embarrassed. And Judy Lyle, Mayor Lyle is her name. And then the other thing I wanted to share with council is that the National League of Cities Executive Council nominated me and selected me to be the next chair for the National League of Cities University Communities Council. So I will be serving in that capacity in a 2-year term. So I feel like it's raining down appointments upon me. So I've got a lot of responsibility aside from the fact that I run the city of Athens on a daily basis, as you're all well aware. So that's all I have, President Niasley.
Thanks. And thanks for letting us know about those appointments and elections. It's good to see Athens so well represented regionally and nationally. I appreciate that. And all your work, because I know it goes with lots of work along with it. Yeah. Councilmember Reisner, yes. Did you have your hand up to say something? It looks like we're frozen, or it is on my screen. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead with ordinances for third reading. 12220 is an ordinance authorizing construction and construction engineering of the dewatering facilities at the wastewater treatment plant. And this is project number 320 and is introduced by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Niasley. I would like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 12220.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Clodfelter.
Thank you. And this, as the title states, this is authorizing construction and construction engineering for the dewatering facilities. And the whereases state that whereas the city is scheduled to receive a 30-year 0% interest loan from the Ohio EPA, and whereas the city is scheduled to receive a critical infrastructure grant from the state of Ohio Community Development Block Grant Program, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to award bids to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder and enter into contracts for construction and construction engineering of the wastewater treatment plant dewatering project. And I just want to highlight that it's really great for our city finances when we are the recipients of 0% interest loans and grants. And so to express my appreciation to our administrative team and the engineering office for their work in doing the best possible job to finance these projects that are so important for our city.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and second. Do we have any comments or questions from council members or administration? And any comments or questions from our attendees? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 12520 is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way permit to John Hanson, the owner of 110 Morris Avenue, to allow a fence. This is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 12520.
A second from Councilmember Grace.
Thank you. It's a special right-of-way permit, meaning that it will be for 7 years and then it will be able to be renewed. And this is for a fence that was alongside the house that they just put up. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Are there any other comments or questions from council members or administration? Any comments or questions from our attendees? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. I'll now move on to ordinances for second reading, and one of which, the last of which, we will be suspending the rules on. So for the first six, I will, or several of them, 5 of them, I will read the title and pause briefly to see if there are any comments or questions. Ordinance 11720 is an ordinance establishing a complete streets policy for the city of Athens and is introduced by Councilmember Katsas. Ordinance 12720 is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way permit to Hocking River Development owner, 26 East Park Drive, to allow directional signage for Marietta Memorial Hospital, Athens Department of Primary Care, introduced by Councilmember Fall. Okay, if no comments or questions, Ordinance 12820 is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way permit to Hocking River Development owner of 26 East Park Drive to allow directional signage for Marietta Memorial Hospital, Athens Department of Primary Care, at the intersection of East State Street and East Park Drive, and is introduced by Councilmember Fall. No comments or questions. Ordinance 13020 is an ordinance amending the 2020 appropriation ordinance and authorizing the auditor to make interfund transfers, and is introduced by Councilmember Crowell. Okay. And then ordinance 13320 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to suspend temporarily the fee for parking at metered spaces in the municipal parking garage and on-street metered parking, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for ordinance 013320.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Clodfelter.
Thank you. And the reason for this is the street closures that are being requested would need to happen. Well, they are being requested to happen prior to our next council meeting.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approving or for suspending the rules on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Costas.
President Nisley, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 013320.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Member Fall. And just to remind everybody, once again, this is to suspend the parking, which we always do in our holiday seasons. The dates that are being requested this year, and this is for the parking garage, everything above the one upper deck after 5 p.m. on Thursday, December 3rd, 10th, 17th, and 24th, and all day Saturday, November 28th, December 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th. The new component to this program is we are also going to suspend the on-street metered parking after 5 p.m. from Sunday, December 13th through midnight, Saturday, January 2nd, 2021.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second for approval of this. Do we have any additional comments or questions from administration or council members? Councilmember Clodfelter.
I just wonder, maybe you said this and I didn't hear it, but I wonder if it would make sense to allow free parking on what's known as Black Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving, which is the largest one of the largest shopping days of the year, to encourage people to go uptown. From my own personal knowledge of Black Friday, it doesn't happen very much in Athens. What you'll find is that people tend to go to Columbus. They tend to take that day because they have Thursday off, Friday off, Saturday off, and they tend to leave the area. So even though it's thought to be a major shopping day, City of Athens in our market doesn't tick like that. I agree that has been the way it has been handled in the past, but on Facebook, I've been seeing comments from lots of people saying that they want to support our local businesses this year more than ever because of the economic downturn. So just maybe if we make parking free on that Friday and publicize it, more people would go uptown and help our local businesses.
President Nisley.
Mm-hmm.
President Nisley.
Yes, Law Director.
Maybe
Yes.
I'm missing something, but at 13320, I know we had some confusion on dates, but I don't see the emergency clause on here. Do I not have the right copy?
The title declares an emergency on it, on our agenda.
It does have an emergency clause.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But thanks for asking.
And I still believe that this will not, Black Friday will not make or break a business at this time of the year.
One possibility might be to consider that we, rather than on the night of the final reading of this, that we consider it for next year and consider a plan with the Uptown Business Association for marketing. That's just a thought. We do have a motion and second for approval. Are there any additional comments? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll now move on to ordinances for first reading. And we do have Mr. McCabe from WODA Group and also Mr. Rittenhouse with us tonight, probably, I'm sure, pertaining to these next two ordinances for first reading. 13520 is an ordinance accepting the petition for annexation of approximately 24.942 acres on Lurig Road and is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. It's not like we haven't seen this project before. Annexation is probably one of the longest processes that you have to go through in city bureaucracy sort of things, because it goes not only through the city council and the planning commission, and then it goes to the council, the county commissioners. And so it's a very well vetted and publicized process. And so this particular project is for multifamily housing along on Lurig Road, which is across from the University Estates access road. And it has universal design and also moderate family, some of the units for moderate income. WODA has a really good track record. They did the really nice project in Nelsonville with the high school. They've done some other things dealing with these kinds of populations. So, we have the person from WODA and also the lawyer and the person, the developer. Would either of you like to speak or answer any questions that council members have about this particular project?
To address any questions you have, as Chris said, you've seen us before, so you may not have any questions. I don't know.
Yes. Member Grace?
Thank you, Councilmember Fall. I just wanted to say that Mr. McCabe came to our Affordable Housing Commission meeting not too long ago and spent an hour with us in that Zoom meeting, and was very helpful and gave a lot of valuable information about the plans. And everyone serving on the Affordable Housing Commission, I believe, is really comfortable with the plans and goals and management style of the company and their approach and what they want to do here in the community. But I did want to just say this is all low-income housing. Is that correct, Mr. McCabe, just as far as the qualifications for residents who would live there?
It is correct. The definition of low income, of course, in this current environment is anywhere between 30% AMI up to 80% AMI. So, when you're looking at that range, that's anywhere from about $15,000 up into, $60,000+ for a household income. And that would be for, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom respective sizes for income qualifications. There's no Section 8 or any other subsidy that's committed to the project or anything. The investment itself is actually over $21 million investment in building just over 100 units of housing. So it's a pretty sizable investment in the construction, and we're proud to be doing this. I think I also spoke to other members of various committees or commissions about our green respective policies, and we'll be doing this as a LEED certified development. Again, I think I've actually spoke as well to the transportation folks, and we're looking to integrating public transit and having a stop integrated on the project as well. So we're rather excited. We've done some high quality projects between the Beaumont Green project as well as our Nelsonville school restoration as a great partnership there as well. So we're looking forward to adding this in our portfolio as a well-respected developer in the field.
Great. Thank you. Member Grace?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Mr. McCabe. They have met with, I believe, the Disabilities Commission here in Athens and the Affordable Housing Commission, and they have some focus on sustainability as well. So I really appreciate the multifaceted approach and maintaining the values from all different perspectives. So,
yeah, this is a very strong public-private partnership when we do these projects. So,
great. Thank you. Member Crowell?
Thank you, Member Fall. Mr. McCabe, is there a level of LEED certification that the project is aiming for?
So traditionally, we've always committed to at least being at silver. We are already committed at silver. However, we found on the last 3 projects, we were able to obtain gold and platinum levels fairly easy and fairly quickly. We're very cautious on this project just because of all the things around it. But I think given the nature of the project, the setting, and what we're looking at right now, we should be hitting gold very easily, if not pushing towards that platinum ranking. It's something we take great pride in, just to be a sustainable builder. We unlike a lot of other developers, but just for curiosity, we hold the properties and projects long term. This is our 30th year in history, exactly this month. And unlike a lot of other developers who sort of build and even stabilize these properties and sell multifamily properties, we own every single one of our projects ever developed in our 30-year history. So from us, it's a little bit more about an investment in a long-term community relationship. And we find that when you spend the extra money on the front side, it does a lot of things. You end up with a much better project. It's a project that I would argue is built far superior to even market rate developers, because you have to watch for air infiltration and energy usage and a lot of details that go into the construction itself. But then secondarily, it actually puts more money in our tenants' pockets. And when you have somebody that moves into affordable housing who needs the money to stabilize and grow, and especially as we expect, our normal traditional goal is that people come into our housing and grow. And, for example, when we did a lot of work in Nelsonville with Rocky Brands, they've had individuals who placed, or they were struggling to find housing for new employees. And what we were able to find is a partnership where people can come in, be entry level in that scenario or setting, be able to get their feet on the ground, and then you build up a little bit of nesting, and then you can move out to buy your house and to grow in the community. So this is a good option. We think a good stepping stone long term. And so we think that, by doing a lot of these little features, help puts more money in people's pocket for things they really need: food, doctor's appointments, healthcare, and housing is just one part of our ethical responsibility that we like to, be able to address very specifically what we do. Because we don't do office, we don't do retail, we don't do any other uses. We're only a housing developer specifically in this niche, what we call a middle market. It's sort of a little bit of a misnomer, because I'd argue a lot of our stuff has really become workforce housing, because a lot of our folks, you have to have a proof of income, et cetera. And really we're housing, every waiter and waitress you may know. We're housing entry-level firefighters, teachers, people who teach at the school, at OU. We don't house students or anybody in a temporary setting like that. They cannot be a full-time student and be eligible for our housing, but we're looking to provide housing for families that help this city grow.
Great. Thank you.
Member Fall, may I continue?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Just curious, you mentioned energy. Are there any renewable energy plans for the construction?
We don't have any at this time. A lot of our between what we're doing with our commitments for hitting our green points, a lot of it's recycling, sustainable uses, long-term, implementing low VOC products, 30-year minimum on lifespans of materials, a lot of the upgraded stuff. We don't have currently any plan for solar or anything, but we take those into consideration as we're continuing to develop, the project and get to a building permit. We do have some projects where it has been possible to do those things, depending on where we've been on the the backside of figuring out all the implementation of things. Sometimes it may be some traditional things about sustainability. You might think about, we may get a brick that's actually a salvaged brick, let's say, that has a unique color, but yet it's already 100-year-old product. But yet you look at it and you go, wow, it's got patina, but it looks brand new. And we've got that example just in one of our projects alone. Or instead of traditional mulch beds I know we've used traditional, replace that with beds of a crushed fine slate from salvage from people's house roofs, for example, or rethinking plantings in parking lots for, where code says 4 trees may be required. Why do they always have to be, what I call the developer special of just picking out the oak or the maple tree? They can be something that may be a fruit bearing product or something that provides sustainability to actually somebody in the project or in the community that actually, we have a lot of different types of partnerships where we try to think a little bit outside the box, but we don't have anything lined up yet. We do have high sensitivity or energy tracking that we're going to be doing on all of the utilities in the project. And we believe that if people are aware of their utility consumption, specifically power and water and those things, you actually tend to use less of those. And we see a lot of multifamily development sort of take the fault of maybe just including utilities out the gate without actually providing a tenant about their consumption, their data, is when we found that when we show people monthly what they actually even use, all of a sudden they become more conscious of that. And that's going to use less of those critical resources long term. So.
Okay, thank you. My last question may be for Member Fall. Member Fall, I believe, and we brought this up maybe in committee, there was some question about an entrance on Lurig Road and whether Lurig Road would become a city responsibility. Did that get resolved?
It will not be a city responsibility, the road itself, Lurig. So, and any, all entrances and exits will have the required traffic studies that will be done for them. So, okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Member Katsas?
Yes, thank you. And Mr. McCabe, thank you for coming this evening. I did, and this, I feel like it kind of runs in parallel. I was just kind of curious, since you have another project that I'm aware of in the area, how, and I know it's a different purposed project, but the Nelsonville, the old high school, I was kind of curious how that's working for you.
We actually could have built a project 4 or 5 times that size. In that case, it was a little bit different because we were saving kind of an iconic building that was really jeopardized and even 2 weeks before we actually closed on our full financing and investment, the city of Nelsonville had put a condemnation order and emergency demolition order on that building. So it didn't lend itself to, unfortunately, being more units because we were constrained by historic tax credits also used on that project. So we couldn't freely decide to add in ways that were not approved by SHPO and the State Office of Historic Preservation. But we would have built a project several times larger just because of the depth of our waiting list. We were only able to accommodate 1 and 2 bedroom scenarios with single baths. In this project, we're going to have up to 23 bedrooms with 1.5 baths. So, if you're a husband and wife and have a child and you need, you may need the 3-bedroom setting, especially in this environment today with so many people who are considering working from home. There's going to be a little bit more flexibility on the family design of the space. I think that'll be integrated pretty well. The school is actually, general occupancy or family as well. It's not restricted to seniors or anything. And so it worked well there, which is, again, we're finding that we have a backlog of individuals in this market. It's one of the largest underserved markets for workforce and affordable housing, which is why even the state placed a sort of a priority on the award of this project, just because they have committed historically far less resources to the Athens market. And they do continue to hear from business leaders and county officials and the Appalachian Commission on the need for housing to address and offset all the student population you've seen and the kind of the lack of middle tier housing that's out there right now. So we hope to fill that void, and I think we'll do a pretty good job at it.
Great, thank you. Other council members? So, Mayor, thank you.
Mr. McCabe, thank you for coming. And you raised you made an interesting comment just a moment ago, and I kind of want to dig a little deeper into it. You mentioned a lot of people working from home these days. Granted, I'm hopeful that COVID-19 goes away at some point in the future.
We are too.
And hopefully before your project is completed. But can you give me a sense as to what level of broadband you might have at the units that you're going to have?
So we traditionally place that at kind of the goal of allowing the tenant to choose from providers and to set up the service as their needs fit. But we're seeing in this day and age, a lot of providers are very competitive between the phone networks and the cable companies, where they want to be able to put their infrastructure in place right at the ground level when we're in construction, which is good, because then they end up running all the networks for individual apartments from a feeder spot within the complex to each individual unit, so that tenants aren't locked out or just have one choice. They have a couple different options on what their internet can be. We've actually seen that when we've put demand or built these kinds of projects in an area, we've actually seen utility companies kind of step up and actually, provide extensions of lines. When you have 107 active households, like you'll have here of potential customers, usually the infrastructure is kind of follows really quickly behind it. So both that and that and just staying competitive in the area. Obviously, there is some student housing, and I can't imagine there isn't, with the adjacency of some of that student housing just right up University of States Boulevard. I can't imagine there's not already some initial feed from our discussions. At least utility availability seems plentiful already, but we would let the tenant decide that.
So is it possible for you to have, a central connection point or a couple of them, and you've already got things to where you're going to design having fiber to that box? Or are you going to let the providers determine whether it's copper or fiber or whatever?
I would actually probably have to defer to just our mechanical, engineers who facilitate some of this. I do know that they generally, the lines are pretty major hubs brought into the distribution points within each building. And we are treating both, the project, for those who've seen the preliminary plans, the project sort of puts half the units on one side of the pond and half the units on the other side of the pond. We're treating those as two sort of separate projects from a financing perspective. So there'll be two pipelines, if you will, one brought to each location and then distributed into the branch complex on either side of that pond. So there'll sort of be two pipelines in place.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Great. Thank you. I think this is another exciting project that can happen in Athens, and thank you for doing your community talk here and telling us all about the awesome win-win that we have when we do these sort of projects. So, other questions or anything? Thank you.
Okay. Move on to ordinance 13620, a related one. This is an ordinance designating the zone for the Lurig Road annexation area, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Right. When you annex an area, you get to designate its zoning. This has come up from the Planning Commission, and it will be designated as a multifamily housing designation. So R3. So any questions? That's straightforward. So thank you.
Okay. Ordinance 13720 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation to install wet reflective pavement markings on state routes 33 and 50 and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. And Member Fall said that she just had a straightforward ordinance coming forward with the last one. This one, I think, is even straighter. ODOT wants to do some work within our city limits. They're going to do a painting project on 50 and 33. It's going to happen sometime next summer. They just would like us to okay that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. The next one is ordinance 13820. This is an ordinance amending the 2020 appropriation ordinance and introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I would like to suspend the rules on 013820 to ensure that there is adequate funding for the community center December payroll.
Second.
Councilmember Reisner seconded. Okay. And so we have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Rules have been suspended, Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to approve 013820.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. As previously mentioned, the community center does need an additional $20,000 for their Community Center Fund 271. in order to cover the payroll for December. This appropriation also includes a Bureau of Worker Compensation check that the auditor's office has received in the amount of $503,789.07. So those two items would be approved with this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval. Any other questions or comments from administration, council members, or our attendees? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll now move on to ordinance 13920. This is an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to formally accept a Southeast Ohio Public Energy Council, SOPEC, grant issued to the city and declaring an emergency, and is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I would also like to make a motion to suspend the rules for ordinance 013920. As this grant was approved at the very end of July on the 31st, and if we approve it, EPW can finalize by receiving these funds.
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Fall. So with a motion and second for suspending the rules, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve 013920.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Clodfelter.
Thank you. This came up in, we've been talking about this for a while, and in committee we got into the details of the microgrid installation that we are very fortunate to be a part of, that we will have installed at the water treatment plant. There's only two of these, as the mayor has indicated, in the state of Ohio, one at the Columbus Zoo and one in our community. And this is a piece of our resilience infrastructure. And this grant from SOPEC would pay for the city's match. So much like Member Fall discussed the Lurig Road development, this is a win-win-win-win. And we're very pleased to be a part of this and have this grant, and to vote to approve it.
We have a motion and second for approval of this grant. And are there any other comments or questions from council members, administration, or our attendees? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Our next ordinance is 14020. This is an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Athens, Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
As chair, shall I?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Yes, this is our annual budget ordinance, and the city administration, under the leadership of the mayor and the service safety director Pyle, have worked very hard with the departments across the city to set the budget. And as can be imagined, it is very detailed and extensive. I encourage council members to review it very carefully. And I'm happy to have it here for the first reading.
And do we have any comments or questions? Okay, we had some discussion of it last week, and I'm sure there will be more. Council was provided with not only the summary page, but also the detail of the budget, so that if any of the council members want to be doing the reading on that before we get to our second reading, and we can work on any questions. I know Councilmember Crowell has already been in discussion with the auditor today and going over and reviewing and analyzing. So we appreciate that too. Okay, and appreciate all the work of all the departments who have prepared, and the elected officials' offices who have prepared their documents to get this ready so we can move forward. Okay. Seeing no comments, we'll move on to ordinance 14120, an ordinance authorizing the 2021 staffing levels and non-union compensation, repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, President Nisley. I will read a few pertinent sections to this ordinance. Section 2, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 731.08, power of legislative authority as to salaries and bonds and the City of Athens non-union fringe benefits, City Council does hereby authorize a 2% general hourly pay increase for full-time and permanent part-time non-union employees. City Council does, Section 3, City Council does hereby authorize a one-time lump sum payment of 2% to those employees whose general hourly pay rate exceeds or will exceed the maximum pay rate in his/her pay grade, a copy of which is hereto attached and incorporated herein by reference. This again goes along with the annual budget ordinance as the staffing ordinance. There are 6 pages attached to the ordinance, and the changes for the next budgetary cycle, 2021, are in red or in bold. And again, I encourage review of the full document. Thank you.
Okay. And questions, comments? Councilmember Reisner? Yes.
Quick question. This came up, I believe, last week we were talking in terms of the maintenance personnel for our cemeteries. Are we rolling those positions over into just general groundskeeping maintenance, or are we keeping them separated?
Mayor Patterson or
anybody?
You're speaking for the cemetery itself?
Yes.
We're keeping those separate, Councilmember.
Okay. Oh.
The Auditor Hecht? Yes.
Just a comment on cemetery funds. They have their own set of state rules, and I've been in sessions at conferences about this, and they talked about one a village, I think, who was using their street crew to do the mowing and shoveling and stuff, and they got in trouble with the auditors for that. We have to have our own people taking care of the cemetery.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. I think the mayor had a question.
Did you have a comment, Mayor Patterson?
I do have a comment. Thank you, President Nisley. Council should have received, I'm sure that you all did, received something from the HR's office, HR Director's office, of a question that was asked at the last meeting, and that was, what are the number of full-time non-union employees? And that is 71 in the city. And for full-time union employees, it is 104. So for the viewing audience who were tuned in last week, those are the numbers.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we'll move on now to, if there aren't any other questions or comments, on to Ordinance 14220. This is an ordinance adopting a fringe benefit package for non-union personnel with the City of Athens and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, President Nisley. Again, this is our annual, part of our annual end of the year preparation for 2021. Again, this is for non-union personnel, the benefits package. This is a 25-page document, and the updates are in red. Just to say again that I encourage close examination of the entire attachment. Thank you.
Okay. We have a question, Councilmember Fall.
Yeah, it's more of a statement. I think it's really important for people to understand that non-union employees are just as important for our city and the function of our city. Traditionally, non-union employees have been the administrative assistants and tended to be the female part of the employee, while unions were more of the male part of the employees. And the city of Athens has been really good about making sure that the non-union employees are represented. That's what I see me doing, is that I'm representing them to make sure they don't fall behind, and to also make sure that they're not also the ones that you have to make up all the other budget, because they're really essential and they deserve what they're paid. Thank you.
Comment? Okay, any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move on to Ordinance 14320, and this is an ordinance authorizing interfund transfers and final approval of CARES Act fund expenditures, introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Nisley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 014320, as the deadline to authorize these expenditures is November 20th.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Fall. Okay,
Sorry.
Motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Nisley. I'd like to make a motion to approve 014320.
Second.
Approved by Councilmember Clodfelter, seconded by Councilmember Clodfelter, excuse me.
And I'll just say that, and I can look for the mayor to shake his head if this is correct, that this would not be actually the final CARES Act funding, but this is the first round of CARES Act funding. This is the final. I thought that we had November 20th and then December 31st or something for the second round. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Patterson.
There are two milestones, Councilmember Crowell. The first one is the November 20th that you indicated, and that is where we need to be able to encumber the money that was awarded to us through the 3 different rounds of funding. And so that's what this is doing, is here's the accountancy of where we have spent the money or allocated that money. And then the money has to be under everything that we have done to this point in time. We have until December 30th to actually spend that money and have it spent for whatever it is we have spent it for, which a lot of that has already been done. It's been PPE. It has been, as you're aware, the funding that we allocated to Hocking, Athens, Perry Community Action for rent and mortgage relief, for city utility relief. It has gone to equipment where under COVID-19, before COVID-19, the government channel and other buildings, the community center, or most notably the Arts West, hasn't had equipment to do virtual programming, but under COVID-19, we found that we have to do virtual programming out of those facilities. And so there have been expenses related to that as well. So what you're looking at is the expenses by departments as well as money going into the general fund, most notably for safety service.
Great, thank you for that clarification, Mayor Patterson. Member Grace?
Thank you. I just had a question. I believe it was mentioned last week in committee, something about possibly pulling back some of the funds that had been allocated for the rent or utility relief if they were not going to actually be used for that. And I wondered if we could get an update on that.
Absolutely. I can provide that to you. As I know that the service safety director was in receipt this afternoon of a check for $80,000, 2 checks rather, one for $10,000 and one for $70,000 that were for the mortgage rent relief. It was $10,000 that came off of that funding that went to HAPCAP, because HAPCAP knew that, one, they were going to be receiving more federal money for rent and mortgage relief, but number two, they had, up to that point in time, up to this past week, 11 households that applied. to the amount of a little greater than $10,000. And even that money, to Sam's earlier question, even though we had granted that money to HAPCAP, HAPCAP still had only until December 30th to spend that money down. Anything that was not accounted for had to come back to the city by December 20th, so we can account for it and send it back to the county, and the county on to the state, or to either the state or the Fed. The same holds true for the utility relief. There were only two households that had applied for a total of a little more than $700 under that program. And so there is still money in those two granting mechanisms at HAPCAP, just not as much as we initially had granted them, knowing again that there was little chance that they were going to come anywhere near close to spending down $75,000 under utility relief. So that was, again, $70,000 was remitted back. I believe that went to the auditor's office later on this afternoon. So that is now back in the city's 285, or that's where it would have gone back to. So now we can reallocate that money as well.
Thank you. Auditor Hecht?
I just wanted to clarify for anybody who's looking at this ordinance and trying to make numbers match. So this ordinance, we didn't receive that CARES Act money until late summer. So a lot of departments had already spent money on COVID-related expenses before then. So we put the money, we were required to create a fund and put the money we received into our COVID fund. And we did, and that was 285. Then we put some account lines in there, and there was some money spent, after we got it, directly out of that fund, 285. So what we're doing in this ordinance is moving the money that was left in the 200 and 300s and the 500s into the transfer line. And then we've added up the amounts that each individual fund spent before we had this fund and this money. And we are reimbursing them for those purchases that have been vetted, turned into Tanya in the mayor's office, and a spreadsheet created, receipts collected. And so that money there shows all the different funds where money was spent. And then we're going to move that money back into those funds, because we are allowed to do that, is reimburse those funds, because the COVID money was effective March 1st, which was when COVID started. So even though we didn't get it until much after that, but that's what gives us permission to do that. So that's what we're doing. Now, the accounting for all of this, the Service Safety Director, Tom Pyle, has to send his spreadsheet and all that information into them by Friday the 20th. So we went, Tanya worked on the spreadsheet. We have spent hours and hours and hours on the numbers and the ordinance, and Debbie can account for that. She has spent a lot of time too, trying to get everything to match what Tom had versus what we have in our system. And so that's where we are right now. So we need to go ahead and move that money out of there, and then Tom can report to the state or the OBM on Friday, or, before, if he is ready, but, have all that stuff cleared out and show that we did spend it. We are leaving about $41,000 in there that is encumbered and is spoken for, but not actually spent yet. I think that's it for me.
That's great. Thank you, Auditor Hecht.
That's
yes,
clear.
As Auditor Hecht mentioned, the mayor's office and the auditor's office and the Service Safety Director Pyle have worked very hard. If you look at the full spreadsheet, the ordinance does itemize about a dozen different areas. Just read, the largest amount is to the general fund, of course, about 1.3 million, but I'll just read section 3 here. of this ordinance. Athens City Council does hereby approve the expenditure of $1,356,047.82 of CARES Act funding. Yes, Member Clodfelder?
I wondered if I could ask a follow-up question pertaining to the $80,000 that City Safety Services Director Pyle was carrying around today, which must have been incredibly intimidating. Is the city going to have any trouble spending that fast enough? Is that going to be an issue that you're getting it now?
I don't know if the mayor wanted to answer that, but the service safety director, service safety services spent a lot of money that we won't actually be reimbursing them the full amount. So no, that amount of money. And then also today or the mayor, I should say, and he can talk more about this, finally got this senior grant information. And so we had tried to, add that in at the last minute. So that's $30,000 we're spending, even though we're getting that 80,000 back. But no, we just put that in there, and we were transferring what we could to the general fund, but it's not as much as we could have. So it's no problem to just add that on to that amount.
Mayor Patterson?
Thank you, Auditor Hecht. Thank you, Member Crowell. Yes, to the point that the auditor is just making, these would be for tablets and Wi-Fi hotspots for our senior citizens that are, basically attended in a non-COVID timeframe, often up at the community center at United Seniors. And so this allows for connectivity. Joyce Lewis provided me kind of a breakdown of the expenses. And as Auditor Hecht indicated, it was a little more than $29,000, close to $30,000. So that can be spent down. But again, as Auditor Hecht also indicated, the allowable expenses also do include safety services. And so we can certainly use all of the CARES Act money that we received, with the hope that who knows what's going to happen going into 2021. I'm certainly hopeful in the meetings and organizations that I'm a part of that there hopefully will be more COVID-19 relief monies coming because municipalities know where that money is most needed. And so the first point, though, is being able to show that we had a need and expense that money out, and we have.
I thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Auditor Hecht, for reminding me about the United Seniors. Clerk Walker had informed me of this, and I needed to add that there would be $29,192 of CARES Act funding that will go for a grant that the United Seniors submitted to the city for CARES Act funding. And as the mayor said, for a number of technology items that will help keep our seniors connected.
And we now have a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote?
Please.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Okay, thanks. And thanks for the thorough explanation. We needed to be careful about that and make sure everybody understood. So those were good questions and good discussion. We'll now move on to a one reading resolution. This is a resolution urging the Governor DeWine and the Ohio Legislature to extend the deadline for operating public meetings electronically and is introduced by all members of council. And as discussed briefly in committee meetings last week, this is a resolution that we will be forwarding to the governor and our state legislators, urging the extension of the electronic meeting beyond the December 1st, 2020 deadline, and would allow city council members, county commissioners, our other city commissions, the ability to meet remote during this COVID-19 crisis. Do we have any questions about this?
No.
Okay. Councilmember Katsas?
And the thing I was thinking about as I spoke to a reporter about this late last week, so we've basically probably moved a lot of our government channel funding to handle this system. So if we go back to our standard operation and have to operate cameras within the third floor of the city building, are we going to be able to fund both of these? Because it doesn't seem like the public's going to be able to have access as good as what they currently have right now.
I'll respond to that, and also, but Scott Thompson, our Director of Government Channel, be on the alert if we might want you to add into this. But we have, as we mentioned, met with Jack Pepper at the City County Health Department to review the facilities in the City Council chambers, so that we would be able to distance all of council members and city administration throughout the room, and also to allow several persons. I think we can allow up to 8 people to attend in person. But as I understand, we'd also be continuing with our remote Zoom meeting capabilities for other members of the public to attend and to offer comments. So it would be a little bit of a hybrid, as I understand, if, when we do come back, if we're still needing to operate with the Zoom feature, that we need to monitor not only people in the council chambers, but people participating via Zoom. Scott, do I have this correct? You said that was good. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Councilmember Casas. We'll do it. But I think the Zoom feature has had a lot of advantages to allow people to attend and to ask questions and to participate. So I think it's been a good feature. Did I see Councilmember Grace and then Councilmember Clodfelter, if you wanted to make comments?
Thank you, President Nisley. And I just wondered if our mayor or law director have any updates on things that they may have heard in meetings as far as where state leaders are on this issue.
I can speak to that. Actually, this was provided by Clerk Walker, and there was a communication from Misty Crosby at Buckeye Hills today. And there had been one substitute bill, one bill that couldn't get through fast enough, but now there's another one, Senate Bill 358, and it's likely to pass tomorrow, but it's best to pass this resolution just in case. And that would extend the authority through the end of the declared emergency, or September 30th. The Senate Education Committee was expected to adopt this substituted bill on Tuesday. So we'll have to wait and see, but we'll go ahead and send out that resolution just to encourage the legislature to move forward. But this has been a pretty hot topic for the last couple of weeks in a lot of different areas.
Okay. That was my question, so you just answered it. Thank you.
Great. So, and I should make sure we follow our procedures that we have if somebody could make a motion and somebody second this for approval of this resolution. So Councilmember Falls is making the motion and Councilmember Grace seconding. Okay. And do we have any other comments or questions before the vote? Patterson.
I just want to share, how far reaching this actually is. Councils of governments fall under this as well, to where if this expires, that COGS would have to go back to face, which would mean for some of us a lot of travel into areas that I don't necessarily want to travel to right now. Being the representative on NOPEC, which meets up in Solon, Ohio, to be a member on the board for Buckeye Hills. It means going to Marietta. Nothing wrong with these places, but just think about that for a moment in terms of we're at a point in time where cases are not going down, they are going up. And so I view it as critical for this resolution and for state legislators to act on something to extend this. It's hard for me to fathom having to get on the road and start attending meetings face to face at this juncture in time.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for the comments. All right, we have a motion and second for approval of Resolution 1420. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the resolution is approved. We now have announcements and other business. If I could have a motion for accepting our October 2020 credit card transactions, please.
So moved.
A motion to approve or to acknowledge acceptance of them and review. Moved by Councilmember Reisner and a second by Councilmember Fall. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. One other announcement. We thought that Professor Sudis's journalism students would be attending tonight. Council members did receive the link to be able to have discussions with them post-meeting. But as we understand, the students will not be here tonight. So we can just, at the end of this meeting, once we've adjourned, we can sign off. We will be in committee next week, so usual deadline applies. If there are agenda items for council members for their committees to discuss, if committee chairs would please turn those agenda items in to our clerk of council, Debbie Walker, by Wednesday. That'll help us. And are there any other announcements that anybody has? If not, then we now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. And of our attendees, is there anybody who is wanting to make a statement? You have up to 3 minutes if you have a comment or statement to make. I'll look briefly here, but I don't see anybody's hands raised or anything in the chat, so I think we'll move on with a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.